Next, we have Rich Sivils. Rich, are you on? There he is.
I am. Yep.
Rich is the reclamation engineer for Usibelli mine, and I think it looks like you've been there for 14, 15 years and have been in the engineer for over a decade. I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can do a better introduction of yourself, but it looks like you're going to tell us about the program and maybe some lessons learned.
Yeah. Okay, so can everyone hear me first thing? I'll just get it. Great. Well, first off, thank you for inviting me to present. My name is Rich. I am a mining engineer by trade, but I've been doing reclamation and permitting environmental stuff for the Usibelli coal mine for going on 10 years now. In October, it'll be 10 years. And with that, I'll try and share my screen. Hopefully it shows up. Is that showing up okay?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay. All right, we'll get started. So I'll just go through a quick history of the company and then talk about the fun stuff. It's all good, but let's see. So, all right, well, I'll start out just talking about our bonding process here at the mine. So we go in, mine an area, but before we can do anything, we have to obviously get our permits in line. We have to post a bond. So after the mining is completed, and I'm going to talk a lot about our bonding later in the presentation, but just the overview of phase one. So there's 3 different phases to get our bond back. The first phase one, we have to complete backfilling and do the regrading of whatever area we've mined to a post-mine topography. And that gets us roughly 60% of the money that was posted back. Phase 2 bond release, we have to establish vegetative cover and have our drainages established. And that gets us another 20% back. And then the final phase 3 bond release is achieved after a minimum of 10 years after phase 2 is completed. And then we also have to do two years of vegetative studies, which basically verify that we have the appropriate ground cover and vegetation diversity. And then that basically gets 100% of the bond back. And I will jump into the company now. Let's see. Okay, so I realize a lot of you are in Alaska or from Alaska. Some of you, this might be your first time in Alaska. What I would just want to show on this slide, realize a lot of folks are down in Anchorage. Healy is located about where Iowa is at on the map. So we're 5 hours north of Anchorage. We are on the main road system. We're on the railroad, which is I guess 100% reason why the mine is here, because we are connected to rail. And the thing I'd like to just add with this is that if you could explore 50,000 acres per day, it would take you 50 years to see the entire state of Alaska. And that's kind of mind-boggling to me. Here at the mine, we've got about 2,500 acres. And I've been here almost 10 years, and I cannot say at all that I've explored that 2,500 acres yet. And it's kind of amazing to me just how big Alaska is and how much resource we have up here. So now just zooming in kind of to the Healy area. Healy is located to the west of the mine, over on the west side of the Indiana River. We do have 5 different permit areas at the mine. 2 are actively in mining status, I guess you should say. So the Tubal Ridge area, which is right here in the middle, and then 15 miles out from the main office is our Jumbo Dome mine. That's our newest mining area. And then actually the first mine that we started in this valley was the Gold Run Pass mine, which was about 12 miles from the main office. And then Poker Flats, which I'll talk about as well, is where we built our drag line and kind of got our surface operations modernized from 40s, 50s up till we are today. So just talk a little bit about the history of the mine. Emil Usibelli founded the mine in 1943. He started with one bulldozer and one truck, and he was tasked with a contract to mine 10,000 tons of coal for Lad Field during World War II to support the war effort. And things have just advanced and become bigger since then. This is just a photo from one of the original tipples back over in the Healy Valley, which is to the south of where we're currently mining by about 5 or 6 miles. There's a long history of coal mining in the area, and today we do about 1 million tons of annual production. There's about 110 employees, and 100 or so are here in Healy, and there's a few folks that work out of Fairbanks and Palmer. We support 6 coal plants statewide, and those are all in the interior. 2 coal plants here in Healy, and then the rest are in the Fairbanks area. And then there's 4 active coal mining permits here, which I've already mentioned. So the Gold Run Pass mine area is completed, and we're pretty well advanced in our reclamation status there. Poker Flats mine area was completed in about year 2000, and mining is also completed, and we just have got about 369 acres of final bond release approved in the Poker Flats area. And then at Two Bull and Jumbo is where we're currently mining. And then Rosalie, which is actually back in the original valley that the company started at, is slated for a future pit. And these are just a few shots around the mine of kind of how we do the actual mining process. We do drill and blast. We are a surface mine. We have one drag line that moves overburden at our Two Bull Ridge permit area. And then we've advanced out to the Jumbo Dome mine area, which is just a truck shovel, an excavator, and loader pit, that far left photo. And then we have to get creative sometimes in moving equipment and just getting things done in Alaska. So kind of back talking about reclamation now. I started out talking about bond release. To achieve the bond release, we go through years and years of work. So once we're done mining an area, we typically get the area regraded within a couple of years, sometimes a lot faster than that. And then we basically start the reclamation process in the field. In the background, all the paperwork, all the permitting stuff it's never ending. But to get our bond release takes a lot of effort from the regulators, from our staff. We hire consultants, and it's basically a 20-year window. If we're done mining, to get final bond release is about 2 decades to get completed. So just talking overall about our land reclamation program, which began in about 1970. We've to date reclaimed over 5,600 acres. There's on an annual basis, we typically we spread 25,000 pounds of seed per year. We typically do 50 pounds an acre. And since that 1970 or so year, we've planted about 500,000 trees. And those are mainly white spruce seedlings and birch. We have also done quite a bit of alder transplant, but we've found that spreading alder seed is almost just as good. And then we typically do anywhere from 20 to 45 tons of fertilizer. And we do, when we do our seeding on initial seeding area, we do apply fertilizer, and then we do follow up in subsequent years if it's needed. And also to note, 10 years ago when I got hired, the company was putting about 400 pounds an acre of fertilizer down. And we did some studies with the Plant Materials Center and consultants, and we were way over applying fertilizer just based on our soil types. We've ratcheted that down quite a bit, and we were getting, I think, even better results than putting too much out. So I like this photo. It was our first camera for our first study site from 1970s. And I just laugh because we don't spell reclamation that way anymore. Company does pride itself in starting before it was required by our permits with, we didn't have SMACR permits in 1970, but that's when the reclamation program began. 1976, 78 time period is when SMACRA came on board. And that's the main permitting regime for surface coal mining. Okay, so I'm going to run through a couple areas where we've done recent reclamation, and that's going to be at Tubal and also some bond release areas that we've done at Poker Flats. So a couple years ago, we undertook a big reclamation project on one of our main mine drainages. And to get started, we had to control the water before it led into that drainage. So we excavated a 30,000 yard sediment trap / pond to contain the runoff upstream of the area that we were going to be working on the drainage. And we just diverted that flow. We're going to one set of ponds to a different set of ponds for ultimate discharge. So to get this project done, we had to redo one of our mine drainage channels. It's an ephemeral drainage. If anyone knows what ephemeral means, I'll give my definition, which means it's intermittent. It's generally dry most of the year. There's not an actual base flow. I'm originally from Arizona, and there's a lot of ephemeral drainages in Arizona, and we're kind of similar up here. This reclaimed area that was upstream of where this photo was taken, I'll show here in a minute. This all drains into the Tubal channel. We had a lot of problems throughout the years with erosion in this channel, and so we did a real big effort to get it engineered correctly, get the correct tools on site, and the design we came up with was installing what we call wing walls, and that basically secures the drainage bottom in place. We shifted the drainage channel over from disturbed ground over to area that hadn't been disturbed yet, and that just kind of lent itself to being more stable. And then that green hammer attachment that is attached to the orange excavator basically is a vibratory hammer that we drove plate steel and I-beams into the drainage channel. And actually go back one. This just shows those pieces of steel being driven in. That's kind of going through the process with our equipment. And then I'm not trying to shoot through these slides too quick, but if anyone wants to ask questions, feel free. So this is an area that we had the channel completed. We we installed 18 sets of these wing walls, and they ranged in width from 20-foot wide on the drainage bottom up to 30 or 40-foot wide. And we also helped stabilize the entire drainage bottom by installing riprap. And this will be the second breakup. We're in breakup right now, coming out of winter. Things still look really stable, and it's holding up extremely well. So this is us when we were getting started on the project. We started basically in the middle of the drainage and worked our way up. So this is a completed shot from the fall after we had worked on that, basically from breakup up until around the 4th of July of 2020. We were pretty well completed on this. We did about 8 acres of hydroseeding just to kind of help also stabilize the slopes. And we've kind of let it be alone, let it do its thing for these last 2 summers. And our intention wasn't to have to go in here and keep doing a bunch of maintenance on this channel. And it's been holding up extremely well. I think this is the video. And this will just do a quick flight over the project as it's being constructed. This just gives a different view of the project. We had done a similar wing wall installation a few miles away in a different drainage, and it held up well. We actually there was 2 iterations of wing walls put in the same drainage previously that did not hold up. So this was our final best attempt, and it's working great so far. And they're doing the hydroseeding as we work our way out on the project. Okay, I'm going to jump upstream now to what we call the tubal regrade area. So the photo on the left was taken in 2020. That area had been regraded about 10 years prior, and it, just put it frankly, it wasn't regraded correctly. There was a lot of steep slopes that were left. We were kind of hesitant to go in and regrade it, mainly because we did have some fairly large alder bushes and vegetation that was taking hold, but at the end of the day, it wasn't overall completely stable. So in 2021, we went in with our dozer fleet and did a regrade project. We followed up. So we basically conducted the regrade from April through September of 2021. This photo was taken midsummer in 2021. And off to the right of this photo, active regrade is still ongoing. We were able to get half of the slope regraded early enough in the spring, and we flew it with our aerial seeder, and things started growing finally in early July. There was like 4 or 5 weeks after the seed had been flown that nothing was coming up, and I was starting to get kind of worried about it, but then it finally popped. We do the majority of our seeding with a modified crop duster. He's very good at what he does, and he's been working for the mine as a contractor for over 30 years now. And the majority of our reclamation success has hinged a lot on his work. So this is also a short drone video of the area that I just showed. And it's just, we do windrowing, furrowing that for the most part is perpendicular to the slope angle. And then the drones flying up, approaching one of our D10 dozers that's completing another area for reclamation for regrade. So this is all, everything that was just flown with the drone in this video was regraded in the same spring or the same summer. Okay. Again, I'm covering a lot of ground acreage wise. If there's any questions, feel free, or somebody will need to speak up. So jumping across the valley to our Poker Flats mine area. These two photos were taken in 1990 on the left and then 2020. So what you're seeing in 1990 is the drag line pretty close to center there. There was about 10 years left of mining in that photo. The big outslope that's to the left of the drag line, that there's some terraces and drainages cut into the side of the hill, was actually a fairly large project that there was quite a bit of slope movement in that area. There was buttresses placed at the bottom of that slope. And then around the year 2000, it was deemed fairly stable. And from that date on, the alders really took off. And that was a big key thing that helped stabilize that slope, was the alder succession that took place. So then the photo on the right, 2020, same area, and the only thing that's left active at the Poker Flats mine permit area in this photo, there's an ash dump that we're reclaiming this spring. We're not taking more ash up to that area, and then there is a shop that's still up there. You basically use for storage or working on projects that are more longer term. And then I keep talking about the year 2000. That was the year that the dragline moved from the Poker Flats mine area over to Tubal, which is across the valley, across the Hosiana Creek. The big area that we worked on for years was basically the majority of Poker Flats is now today, as of a couple years ago, has received a phase 3 bond release. So there's 369 acres that we had approved with DNR with the state. And this is what a portion of it looks like when it's not winter. And I could show a lot of photos of a lot of mature trees and, vegetated slopes. One of the more interesting things that, to me at least, is that we've got these frogs that are very plentiful in a lot of our reclaimed areas. And I mean, it's pretty amazing to me that these things freeze solid in the winter, and springtime they just come alive and do their thing for a few months. And that was the biggest one that I found, and he was, or I don't know, might have been a female, was close to 4 inches long. So that's kind of the smallest example of the wildlife that comes in and repopulates after we are during and after our reclamation. We've got a lot of moose. We have caribou that frequent the area. I'll show some photos later. I am an engineer, but I don't typically like to show a lot of facts and tables and figures. This is the most advanced thing that I show, and I'll try and explain it so even that my mom would understand. So first part, in 2010, we had 94 acres of phase 3, which is final bond release at the mine, or at our operations, I should say. And that was out at Gold Run Pass. That was approved in 2010. So then jumping ahead 12 years, we have 69 acres of phase 1 bond release. We've got 157 acres of the phase 2, which is kind of our intermediate middle step of getting things completed. And then we have 493 acres of final bond release approved, and that's a big achievement for us. So if you total all those up, areas that are just under some form of bond release, we have 793 acres out of about 2,200 acres that is in some state of either it's been disturbed, it's sitting underneath a road, which we use to access the mine areas. That also includes like our shop area. So I did the math last night, and that's 40% of our area, of our mine area, is under some form of bond release. There's about 30% of that disturbance. Additionally, that would qualify for phase 1 bond release. We just haven't applied for it yet. And this year, we're looking to apply for 100 acres of phase 1, 69 acres of phase 2, and then another close to 60 acres of phase 3.
Yeah, I think.
Was there a question? I didn't quite hear it.
Nope, I think there was some background noise.
Oh, okay. Okay. So actually, I didn't cover a lot of our tree planting. I wanted to show kind of the background to get us to the point where we can plant trees. So, and I touched on this right at the beginning, but so we do have a large tree planting effort every summer. We typically plant 25,000 seedlings per year, and those are mainly white spruce. A quarter or even a third of that is birch. We also do in the fall time quite a bit of alder cone collecting, and then we save that over the winter. We basically keep it in open containers and Connex. We found that if we bag it up and keep it in, say, the office over the winter, it gets moldy, and then the seed really isn't any good. So we try to mimic, what happens naturally. This alder seed gets produced in the fall, right around freeze up. So we collect the cones, collect the seed, and then we'll mix it in with our aerial seed mix, or we'll put it in with the hydroseeder as he puts out material. And that's been really, really successful for us. We also do quite a bit of willow staking, and to some extent actual willow transplants, but cutting off willow branches and just burying them in the ground has worked great for us. And then alder, like I say, we do the cone collecting, but it also just doing its thing. The alder seed on its own generally blows in, and it is usually one of the first to repopulate of the, besides the grasses. I think the next photo is of the caribou. So we had a herd, 40 or so caribou that were around the mine site. That's been like 6 or 7 years ago. And they found one of our reclamation slopes, and they hung out on this spot for about a month straight. The haul road that's right above this slope, they didn't mind at all. And that was taking 100% of our coal from the Jumbo Dome mine down here to the office, to the tipple, to be shipped out. We don't typically see caribou down low. That I can't remember if it was 2016 or 17 was that year. Whatever reason, they found their way to a reclamation area and hung out for a little bit. That was really cool to see. We do have a lot of moose and quite a few bear that show up in the spring. We don't typically see the grizzlies during the majority of the rest of the summer or fall, but right now is when we typically will see a grizzly wandering around here or there. We do have quite a few wolves and lynx on site as well. So just try to give a snapshot of what we got going on up here. And that, when the aerial seeder flew over, really scared the crap out of me. He was about 100 foot below me, and then he pulled up and buzzed me pretty close. So with that, that'll be the end of my part. I think I'm got a few minutes for questions.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. Do we have any questions? We got a couple here. Start with you.
Yeah, I guess my question regarding the aerial seeding, what species are you seeding and what's the source of that?
So the aerial seeding, trying to get my screen slid over here. We have a seed, we have a grass seed mix that's approved with the state, and I could pull it up. I should have printed it out, but I don't have it offhand. There's about 8 different species of grass that we've worked with the Plant Materials Center and also with the just DNR, the coal mining section. There's brome, I'll try and name a few offhand. I wish I would have printed it because I always get asked this. Yeah, so there's about eight species that we put down in our grass seed mix, and then we also have a temporary seed mix, and that'll be for more. It is cheaper, and we typically do that along our road edges. And again, that's approved with the state, and that's more like our rye, and we have bluegrass. We have, what's the one that you can think of, the other big part of our seed mix, but like it's not a great answer, but it's my answer right now.
Thanks. I think we had another question.
Answer the part about the sourcing. So does it all come from, like, do you buy it from Alaska Mill and Feed, or do you get it directly with PMC, or?
We get it from Alaska Mill and Feed, and then our trees are grown by Reese Greenhouse up in Fairbanks, and they come down and grab spruce cones. They collect birch seed down here as well, so that's all sourced on site, and it's a multi-year process. So yeah, those are our 2 big tree species that we plant, and we've toyed around with having them also grow willow, grow alder, grow dwarf birch for us, but we haven't gotten to that point yet. We're just kind of sticking with the big 2 tree species for us.
I just had one more. This is Ann Erickson. I'm from the Bureau of Land Management. I'm a little more familiar with like placer mining, bonding and things like that. But I think you did talk at the Alaska Invasive Species Conference in Fairbanks a couple of years ago. So I saw your talk there.
Yep.
Thanks for giving that. That was great. One question I have is from surface, coal mining, permitting and bonding with the state. What is your impetus to plant trees? Is it, I've not actually ever seen a reclamation plan for the state, but is there something in there that says you have to have tree cover? I would think that would be kind of like an extra bonus, because it's kind of labor intensive.
Yeah, it is kind of an extra bonus because, to be honest, so when we go to get our phase 3 bond release, we have to get a certain amount of it doesn't matter what kind of vegetative cover it is. Obviously it can't be an invasive species, but we have to have vegetative cover and then plant diversity. It does not specify, numbers of trees per acre or species per acre or anything like that. It's a pretty easy target to hit to get our final bond release. But one of our, and this is again pretty general, one of our the end goal for the reclaimed land that we have here is for wildlife habitat, mainly moose habitat. I realize moose don't really eat spruce trees, or typically I don't think they eat spruce trees, but we do plant spruce because that's what was there before we mined it. We plant birch because on generally the south facing slopes, we have birch trees. So that's what we're putting back. And if we weren't doing those transplants of spruce and birch, they would still come back on their own. It would just take a lot longer, is how we look at it. So we're basically trying to just speed the process up. They do help somewhat with stability, but once we get a good grass cover down, once the alders kind of start to take over, which they typically do on their own, that's pretty much when stability is achieved. I don't think anything really in the Healy area is 100% stable to begin with, just the geology and topography we've got. So when we put things back, we try and build 3-to-1 slopes or shallower, and we try to put things back how they'll eventually end up. What we don't like doing is going in, do a bunch of reclamation, for some reason have it not be stable, and then have to go back in and regrade an area, not just for an obvious monetary, money reason, but it just sets the clock back on everything when we have to go back in, redo an area like that big slope that I showed for Tubal. We didn't really want to go and do it, but we had to, because the way it was sitting, we were not going to get anywhere on bond release. Didn't look good. That's another kind of standard that we have, is if the slopes look good, if we get good vegetative cover right away, it's probably going to turn out great. If it doesn't look good from the beginning, it's probably not going to turn out how we want it to. So.
Thanks. I have a question, Rich.
Yep.
You said that you're pretty pleased with your aerial seeding program, and you also said that you guys actually plant seedlings, and you must have some sort of workforce for that. Why both of those? Why bother with planting seedlings and not just air seeding everything?
Just to speed up the process, basically. We're already, I don't know, the way we look at it, if we're going to collect the spruce cones and birch seed, it is a lot more money for us. It is very labor intensive, and we kind of like to have a good end product. So if we can get 2 or 3 old trees that are gonna, generally what we've seen is pretty high success on our seedlings. And I did watch Julie's presentation previous to me. I'd be very interested how we could obtain bull pellets. That'd be pretty interesting for us. It's easy for us to get caught up in just the mining side, and I'll just get it reclaimed. But there's a lot of the science behind everything that really can't ignore. And there's been hours of discussion on how we can advance the mycorrhizae and all that fun stuff that me and a couple other people actually know what that means here at the mine, and just getting that knowledge out on just how we can. We take pride in our reclamation, and we try to do as best we can. So I do plan on emailing Julie and Tom and seeing what their ideas on some new things that we can try. So
thanks. It looks like we have a question online from Julie. Have you measured the seedling success rate?
Nope. It's all there's quantitative and qualitative. And I don't know I'm a mining engineer, and whichever is the one where you go out and look at it, say, yeah, that looks good. That's as technical as we've gotten.
That's qualitative.
So yeah, that's qualitative. We actually have a grad student that we're gonna work with this summer, and she's gonna do quantitative, or I don't know, the one that we don't do. She's gonna get more technical with us and actually give us some numbers that we can put on the wall and say, hey, we think we've got an 80% tree survivability, and I can go to areas and I feel pretty confident in that, but we haven't actually measured that. If it's down around 40%, I think I would still be happy. It's definitely, you can go out and look at areas that we've done our seedlings and they're doing great. There's some areas where we go out and there's not a lot of seedlings that took, and that could be we had a really dry summer or some other variable. So.
All right. Well, thanks for taking time out of your day to share what you do. And it was great. So with that, I think no other last second questions here. Oh, we got one. You're not off the hook yet.
Sorry for the last minute question. It's kind of a follow-up to your tree success. I was just wondering, having done some work on industrial lands, one of the things I've seen in the back past, and this is not an Alaska experience, so it's one of the reasons I'm asking the question, is do you find you have to do anything to battle soil compression prior to planting, trees or shrubs?
Yeah, and that is an issue for us. So the short answer is we're planting on sandstone or into sandstone, which composition wise, I'll equate it to beach sand. It does get a little bit more competent than that, but we are putting seedlings into beach sand that has some nutrients in it. And part of the reason that we kind of dialed back our fertilizer rate is because it was shown that fertilizer was just shooting through that column of dirt that we were planting the trees in, and it wasn't really giving us much benefit. We weren't having a lot of actual like runoff or algae blooms or a bunch of nitrogen, showing up in our ponds, but it was just going through the soil column and getting down below where it was being useful. So hope that maybe answers. Yeah, maybe I got off on a tangent.
That's great.